Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Grads and Job Seekers webinar that Caitlin and I will be hosting. I'll do a quick introduction in a second, but what the purpose of the webinar is pretty much to help job seekers, grads, those who are on the job market to boost your career prospects for this year, 2025. We're all very hopeful and optimistic about what this year will bring. We want to take our learnings, our insights, the information, the stuff that we've also learned in the industry as recruiters, and we want to share that with you. So, as mentioned, we're hosting Caitlin Mitchell and I, Adrian Pillay, and just a quick introduction. We're both recruiters working for Pro Talent Recruitment. I've been with the company 7 years. Caitlin just over a year, I think, but she'll when she makes her introduction, she'll explain shortly. So just to crack on with business, our purpose, like I said, we'll do our best to discuss the following: hard skills versus soft skills. What are employers looking for? What your CV really says about you, and how to leverage transferable skills. And then at the end, we'll do a conversation, sort of a discussion about understanding the cross-generational workplace. So just to give you a bit of background on myself, I've got a career history spanning 25 years. I studied teaching way back when, and also HR, but landed a job in Transnet and stayed with that within Transnet for 6 years. It was very enjoyable. Picked up a lot of life skills because I worked on trains, assistant train driver, so quite a massive difference to what I'm doing now. But I left Transnet in 2006 and moved to the UK. I was very fortunate enough to have got the opportunity to stay there for 10 years. Could have stayed longer, but I missed the sunlight and the beach, and obviously home is home. So I came back and have pretty much been in recruitment for the last 18 years. In London, I was working in HR and also recruitment for an IT company there. So my skills and background has pretty much been technology, HR, recruitment. So just to describe or define what hard skills and soft skills are. Hard skills are the technical skills, right? They're easy to measure. They are typically learned through education or hands-on experience, so somebody showing you what to do, or somebody teaching you through a vocational or academics or certification that you would do. So hard skills are the more concrete, measurable abilities that are specific to a job. So you want to become a plumber, you'll go to a training college and learn practically what plumbers would learn. You get a certificate. Same with electricians, fitters, artisans, programmers. Any job that would require a technical skill provides you with skills to be in that vocation. Those are hard skills. But what are soft skills? Soft skills are more difficult to measure because they're people skills. If I told you my name is Adrian Pillay and I live in Queensborough, you wouldn't necessarily know what I'm good at or what skills I have, because I haven't told you whether I'm artisan or a plumber or an electrician or a developer or a network engineer. But how do you tell the difference? If I produced a certificate, you'd know I'd have the hard skills to do that job, whatever it might be. But how do you determine my people skills? Just by looking at me, or just by seeing that. You wouldn't know my human skills, the attributes that I have, the traits and abilities to interact with people. So soft skills speak to the how and why you are motivated to do certain things. Soft skills are developed over time through self-awareness, more, and intentionality. Intentionality in where you are and interacting with people. People tend to teach you how to behave, if that makes sense. So hard skills are very specific. They are teachable abilities like engineering, I mentioned, finance or programming. An example of hard skills would be having the proficiency in Python for data analyst or data science roles. And then again, soft skills are your interpersonal skills, interpersonal abilities like teamwork, adaptability, and also communication. An example of soft skills would be how do you resolve team conflicts, or how do you work in a group project, or how do you present if you were a salesperson? How do you communicate? A Harvard study showed that 75% of long-term job success depends on people skills, not technical skills. Technical skills, yes, is needed to get you into the job, but it's the soft skills that really maintain the consistency of staying in that job. Another survey on LinkedIn a couple of years ago, 93% of employers consider soft skills as essential. So it's an essential requirement or a very important requirement. So here's some of the traits that you want to possess or carry or build on to develop or have soft skills. And when Caitlin describes CVs later on, these will all sort of tie in. So the ability to be self-managed, the ability to think critically, interpersonal skills. There's a long list there of communication skills, flexibility, mental flexibility, being adaptable, having the ability to learn and learn fast, building relationships, working effectively in teams. Self-management, just that box under there. So understanding your own emotions and triggers, understanding own strengths, having that self-control. So when you're in a team environment or a project environment, so understanding where you fit in, the ability to communicate, to be empathetic to others around you, and how that dynamic, how to sort of navigate through the dynamic of working with people and working with others. Leadership skills, I'll be talking a little bit about that in a few minutes. So role modeling. Leaders tend to inspire vision. They have great organizational awareness. They take ownership and they're very decisive. Leaders also have grit and persistence. So these things are listed because they can't necessarily be taught. They need to be developed by the individual. You may go to, you may do a short course, you may do things like this, webinars, but it's the self-awareness of knowing what the labels are, these skills. So when it comes to building relationships under interpersonal skills, for example, having empathy to understand the next person or the person around you or the person next to you, having the humility to lead others or put others above you in a team. So giving others the space to flourish or to do well in a certain task. It's these soft skills that can't necessarily be measured in a person, but it's only through your own self-awareness and intentionality, like the slide before said, that you can start developing these and maintain. And the other thing about soft skills, it's ever growing. You never reach. You're always learning because you're always being challenged as well. But what's the key difference, hard skills versus soft skills? So hard skills will definitely get you an interview. If you've got the qualifications, if you're an artisan, if you're a fitter, if you're an electrician, trade tested qualification, your CV will get you to that interview. But when you're in that interview, sitting across from a panel of interviewers, what's going to get you the job? It's the soft skills. So essentially, soft skills will get you the job and potentially even a promotion when you're in that job. So what are we saying? Technical expertise will make you credible for sure. It's needed, it's important. We're not denying qualifications, certificates. We're just stressing on the importance of people skills and soft skills, which will make you more memorable. If you sat in an interview, the interviewer will remember your CV by the qualifications, but how will you be memorable post that interview? So you have to understand when you go for an interview, that interviewer will have seen maybe 3 people before you or another 5 people after you. And they may all have the same qualification. So it wouldn't help having a generic CV with just your qualifications. It'll definitely help having a cover letter, for example, um, highlighting what your key attributes as a person is, and also displaying that in the interview. So having the communication skills, having the presentation skills um, during the interview, how to build rapport with that interviewer. That's the type of skills that will make you memorable. So soft skills in interviews, you always want to demonstrate culture fit. So again, the interviewer, the hiring manager got your CV through whatever application process or maybe an agency, and your qualifications obviously stood out. But how do you now make sure that you get that job in the interview? And based on your research of that company or the job description, that culture is a big deal to this company and having the right culture fit. So now you've got to adapt yourself or at least align yourself to the company's values. So you want to do research on that company and that interviewer if you can. And during that interview, you want to highlight as much as possible your attributes and your values and how you've worked in similar industries or similar sectors. You build rapport with that interviewer. So through soft skills, you can engage with that interview with the hiring manager, a genuine interest. Say you came across or during your research, you came across the LinkedIn profile, and you found that you guys have, or that you and the interviewer, the hiring manager, has similar interests. Maybe you're part of the same group. Maybe you enjoy golf. Maybe you enjoy tennis. And having that genuine mutual interest now creates a new level of conversation. Had you not done that, had you not figured out that you do have common interests, it wouldn't have come up. You wouldn't have brought it in the interview. And all that would have happened in that interview was the interviewer is asking a question, you're answering yes, no, maybe, and that's it. It doesn't make you memorable. So practical tips, research who you're being interviewed by and find common ground as much as possible. Simple things like even mirroring tone and body language in an interview. So these are all part of the same soft skills that you would need to work on and develop. Listening skills is important. Definitely understanding the question or when an interview is asking you the question, repeating back, help me understand that. So what you're asking is, how can I do this in this situation? So from the way you answer should reflect how much you've listened to the question. So you nod affirmingly, repeat some of the words, and yeah, answer effectively. So with regards to soft skills, what are employers really looking for? Are they just looking for the hard skills, the qualifications, the certificates? In our experience, not so much. Like I said before, the technical skills, the certificates is what gets you the interview, but it's the soft skills that'll get you the job. I've read somewhere that when you're presenting, start with the bad news first. I came across this article just last week, 21st January, on Forbes magazine. And it says almost 90% of employers won't hire new graduates. And that's a shocking stat. It was even shocking to read. The link is down there if you want to follow that. But what this article basically said was, or some of the stats that it provided was 89% of HR leaders say they avoid hiring recent graduates, even while 98% of them say that their organization is struggling to find talent. And of all the recent graduates they hired in the last 12 months, 78% of employers report that they've already let some of them go. That's shocking to see that. And we'll talk more about graduates, etc., and why, and sort of how to navigate the differences in generations. So Steve Jobs is attributed to saying It doesn't make sense to hire smart people and then tell them what to do. We hire smart people so that they can tell us what to do. It might sound like this is giving you the space to be arrogant and to call yourself smart, but I don't think that Steve Jobs was necessarily meaning that. He wasn't saying we want people to tell us to come in here and start brashfully telling us what to do. I think the key word in this quote is smart, because employers really want problem solvers. They want proactive thinkers. They want collaborative team players and not just tick boxes or box tickers. This whole presentation, in fact, was put together by Caitlin and myself, and that was collaboratively working over a few weeks, putting this together, working out some of the problems. We started this whole session with a problem to solve when we had a Teams invite versus a Zoom invite, and that created some time delays. So again, we apologize for that. But employers are looking they're looking for A players. They are looking for people that lead by example. They're looking for individuals that display integrity and reliability. They want people on their team that are proactive and have a positive work ethic. Emotional intelligence plays heavily into all of this, and self-awareness through that. In our team, it's one of our values that humility stands out with anyone that comes on board, and having a team first mindset. So it's not just a me first, it's what's best for the team. And also effective communication. So in actual fact, leadership is the word, I think. It's the buzzword. It has been the buzzword, but I think it's been more used in situations where there was a title or a position. But I don't believe that leadership is meant to be title-driven or position-driven. Because if you do a quick Google search and you just started saying leadership is not, the first thing it says is leadership is not a position. It's not about being in charge, and it's not necessarily for everyone. It's not a popularity contest, and it's definitely not an easy task. And it's not about being the best. A leader is someone who prioritizes the needs of their team or organization ahead of their own, focusing on helping others grow and succeed. This person is a promoter of collaboration, is self-aware, and has empathy, and one who exemplifies high ethical standards. So the point about having that Steve Jobs quote, he mentioned, and I focused on I emphasized the word smart. The acronym for smart leadership would be S for serve first, prioritizing the needs of your team, empowering them to succeed. M for motivate, being motivational, inspiring others through your vision or the team vision, encouragement and purpose. Being authentic, so leading with integrity, transparency, and a genuine care for your team. Being respectful, embrace diversity, value input, and create an inclusive environment. And T, being transformative, strive to bring out the best in others, driving personal and organizational growth. It's a ripple effect when you develop leadership within yourself first, and it translates outside to your team and to your company. So that takes us to Caitlin's portion of the webinar, and I'll hand over to Caitlin.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Adrian. I'm gonna change the screens now. Just let me know when you're ready. Okay. Let's see.
Maybe I needed to stop sharing on my side. I think that, yeah.
Let's see here. Okay.
Is it allowing you to share?
There we go.
Cool.
Okay. So now we are moving on to the CV portion of this presentation. So if your CV were a person walking into a room, what impression would it leave? Would it leave the impression that you're professional? Would it leave the impression that you're unclear? Is your CV outdated? Are you displaying enthusiasm for the position? I think we forget that your CV speaks for itself. It speaks first. So, what does your CV really say about you? So, to start off, we're going to look at what the purpose of a CV is. So, the purpose of a CV, I've got 5 points to land an interview. It's not to land the job. So your CV is the first thing that gets you through the door. It's to get you an opportunity. So I think that's where knowing what to add and what not to add in a CV becomes really important. It's about sparking interest and making employers want to know more. So it's like a trailer before the movie. So you give your CV, that's the trailer, and the movie is when you meet with the employer to discuss, the fit and your experiences. So your CV is meant to show a record of your experiences and achievements, to show your progress and qualifications, and to make a strong impression. Okay. It's also a marketing tool. You use it to show who you are, your achievements, your goals. So the key sections, obviously, in a CV would be your contact. So your number, email address, work history, skills, and experience. Keep it professional, positive, and easy to read. Use online resources. There are extensive resources on how to put a CV together. I think sometimes it can be overwhelming, but if you stick to the key things, contact information, work history, starting from the most recent down, it does start getting a bit easier. Graduates, this is where it gets a bit difficult because sometimes you come in with no work experience. Highlight your academic achievements. So if you receive distinctions or if you successfully completed whatever project, just have a section there titled achievements and list that underneath. So coming back to that no experience, if you have no experiences, volunteer or start small. Experience plays a big role. So if you decide, okay, I'm going to volunteer at Baby Home and this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick my hand up for organizing fundraising events. You can use that skill later on in your CV or in your interview when you're discussing how you can add value, because the experience that you've gained from volunteering or running whatever it is that you choose to do, you are leveraging the skills you've gained for the company. Okay, so brings us back to how does your CV represent you? So when you look at your CV, if you just look at it like you're looking at a piece of paper, what does it look like? Is it cluttered? Is it disorganized? Do you have hard to read fonts? Are there poor spelling errors? Do you have an unprofessional email? Deadpool123@gmail.com is definitely not a professional email address. So I would suggest name, surname. So for me, Caitlin is a very common name. So I had to use kate.mitchell21@gmail.com to create an email address because there's like 500,000 Caitlins on this planet. I would also suggest that you have a separate email address for when you are applying for positions, and that's the email address where you know you'll receive all your important information regarding jobs, and you won't miss out on things because you've got 500 emails from Shein or Temu or anything like that. Also, another important thing is wrong details. Don't include. Make sure you update your number. That's another one. Or when you've got 2 numbers, maybe explain what each number is for. Because oftentimes I've seen CVs where there are 2 numbers listed, and how would I know which one to call? And it does make it like, oh, okay, let me look for someone whose number is like listed clearly. Okay, cool. I'll type this number in and come back to the other one. Your CV picture. This is very, very important because there's a saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And if you use the incorrect picture, you're giving that employer a couple of words. So on the left, I've got one guy with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and this guy showing his abs. These are not pictures that would be appropriate for a CV because they don't show a level of professionalism. And on the right, we've got two guys. I'm not saying you have to dress up in a suit for a picture, just saying that, professional head, shoulders, make sure you look neat kind of picture. Let's see, CV tips. So there's 5 here. Place your current role at the top. So you start from most recent all the way back to maybe your first position or where you started working after matric, that kind of thing. Include dates, very important. Month and year. Those are important things that you need to include. Skip personal interests unless it is relevant to what you're applying for. Oftentimes people confuse whether to add personal interests or not, and I would opt for not, because you can get into personal interest when you get into the interview. Right now, your CV is there to show your professional experience, your education, your background, that kind of thing. So we want to keep it in line with that professional. You'll have time in the interview when you get to engage with the hiring manager or the owner of the company. You'll be able to get into your personal interests. And then another thing, this is actually something I didn't think about doing, adding your LinkedIn profile, if you have one. Add your LinkedIn profile. If you're someone who has a bunch of blogs, add your links to the blogs that you've written, projects you've completed. Add that. Those are all good things that show versatility. Like if you are an admin and you on the side you enjoy writing and you have like this blog where you post constantly, adding that it maybe puts you ahead of one or two other people just because you've got an extra skill set that has some transferable skills, which we will get into afterwards. Okay, so the next thing is name dropping. Don't be afraid to name drop where you can. If you've worked with Nike, I don't know, maybe you're a copywriter for a company, add that. Those are really important things. I mean, like when you see Nike on a CV, it's like, whoa, wait, let me see that again. That's kind of the goal. Check for typos, grammar, and formatting. It's very important. It shows attention to detail. And if you have poor spelling errors, then it's also you're not putting yourself in a good position. So graduates, focus on key points. Show, don't tell. Don't just show, like put in your CV, passionate. Okay, passionate about what? Don't put leadership. Explain a little bit more. I will get into this a little bit later. Be clear. And then another thing, this again, debatable, but I think there is value in tailoring your CV to each position. Some people don't feel like it's worth the trouble. They just send the same CV. Others do. And that could mean the difference between getting your CV noticed and not getting your CV noticed. For experienced workers, keep it brief. Focus on results. Numbers are great. Again, something we'll come back to later. Provide examples. Align it with the role and be clear. Okay, so things to consider when you look at your CV. Does it reflect your value for the role you're targeting? Does your CV highlight your key strengths and achievements and workability? Is your CV clear, concise, and easy to scan for key information? So another strategy you could use. So the way I've put the slide together, you can see that I've put some things in bold, I've underlined some things. Those are also good ways to make your CV easy to read. Don't highlight everything, don't put everything in bold. Be selective of the words. So like I've used clear and value as ones that I've put in bold, key strengths, achievements, and workability as ones that I've underlined. Okay. So into the next section, transferable skills. So what are they? They are skills that are gained through education, jobs, volunteer work, personal projects. It's valuable because you can use them across different roles and through different industries. The focus is on how you think, problem solve, and interact. So common examples: communication, leadership, problem solving. It's not dependent on specific technical knowledge. So, for example, maybe when you were at university, you did a research project and you would have gained valuable skills through that research project, which you can put together on your CV to explain you did this research and these are the results that you came with. You've obviously learned skills like how to research. Those are things that you can add onto your CV. Another example is work. So I read this, I think, a couple of days ago, where Excel and Google Sheets, obviously pretty much the same thing. The uses are similar. You may have learned how to use Excel in one company and the other company wants you to learn Google Sheets. You can say, well, pretty much the same skill, more or less the same skill that you can transfer from the other. So why are they important? It shows flexibility, it shows you can grow in new environments and still bring value. Another important thing is even if your background isn't the perfect match for the role, showing these transferable skills gives you maybe a little bit, gives you a foot up maybe. They reduce the amount of time and training needed for you to adjust to the new role. Okay, so how do you identify them? You look at your past roles. Any previous work experience? Did you intern somewhere? Did you volunteer somewhere? What tasks did you perform? What skills did you use on a regular basis? Think about your achievements. What are you proud of? Did you lead a project? Did you help increase efficiency or improve customer satisfaction? Another important way of identifying them is asking for feedback. Sometimes it is hard to identify your own strengths, and by having a conversation with someone, you can easily get some insight into, oh, cool, that's what I'm good at. Sometimes in the conversation, when you're chatting, you realize, oh, wow, okay, I didn't realize that that's a strength. I didn't know that that's something I could possibly use. How do you showcase them? Okay, so for graduates, instead of saying leadership, again, also something I'm guilty of where on my CV I've listed just leadership and I haven't quite explained what leadership, what does that mean? So an example, you could say led a student project team of 4 to complete a marketing plan ahead of schedule, resulting in a 15% increase in engagement. I'm going to do communication skills. So instead of just listing that, you can say you presented your research findings to your lecturers and your peers, clearly explaining complex concepts in a way that everyone could understand. So for the more experienced, instead of just listing leadership, you can say you led a team of 5. Again, numbers are so important because it shows, okay, cool, 5, not such a big number. When you put 15, it just adds more to your toolbox of skills. You've led a team of 5 to deliver a project 2 weeks ahead of schedule, exceeding client expectations. Communication skills. Instead of that, you can put delivered a quarterly presentation to executives, translating complex data into clear strategies for growth. So I actually just want to go back to what Adrian said in the beginning. So when he made the reference there's a difference between hard skills and soft skills. Hard skills obviously will get you that opportunity. It will get you to the interview, but your soft skills will land you the job or the promotion. Now, being able to identify your transferable skills, I feel like that adds an extra, layer to you. It adds more to your toolbox of skill sets. Okay, so now we are on to the next section, which is understanding the cross-generational workspace. So how can we better understand and appreciate working in a cross-generational workspace? So this is an image of what the world kind of looks like now. These are the generations that exist. So we've got from the greatest, the silent, the boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha. So at ProTalent, we have 4 generations from the boomers to Gen Z. So I'm 23, so obviously I fall under Gen Z, and the oldest person here is Gail, and she's 70, so she would fall under boomers. Adrian is Gen X, he falls obviously under Gen X, millennials, and then we have our GM Rose. So for the first time, and I don't know how long, maybe ever, 4 generations are working at the same time. Okay. So we have 4 generations in the workplace. As I said, baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z. So baby boomers, they are collaborative but are supposedly seen as averse to change. And I think that that would be the stigma. But what we really see now, so an example is Gail. So Gail is pretty good with a computer, and she's managed change across working with different generations. Gen X, supposedly bleak, not necessarily true. It's just the stigma that comes with the stigma that world or society kind of seems to have about Gen X. Millennials, often seen as driven, but also entitled, apparently. That's kind of the stigma that gets put out. Gen Z, we're seen as progressive but disloyal. Again, it's a stigma that is placed on, each of these are stigmas that are placed on the different generations based on things that might not necessarily be true.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to have a little bit more of a discussion. It's going to be a little less formal. That was just more of an introduction. So maybe Adrian, you could explain what your experience has been like as someone who's worked across or with all these different
I have, yeah. It
generations.
makes me look very old. But I fall within Gen X, born in 79, so I just missed the cusp, if you want to say that, into millennials. But I think it's sort of overlap anyway. But you're right. I have worked with uh, all of these generations that's labeled there. My parents would be just before baby boomers, in fact, because they were born in the 30s and 40s, both of them.
Mm,
So I have a very different understanding of all of these generations. And I think maybe to your point, uh, and to the topic, it's understanding the different generations that's in the workplace currently. So having worked in Transnet, like I mentioned in my bio, there was a lot of older folk and who grew up also differently in a different time. And as a 20-year-old joining Transnet, I had to learn very quickly and adapt to their way of thinking. But thankfully, I had parents who also were very older or come from that generation. It kind of instilled certain values or qualities in me to help me understand what that older generation that I'd be working with. And then, developing myself of my career progression into the working world, working across these generations. There are clear differences between them because each of them would have grown up in a different time, grown up with different technology around them. And like you said in your previous slide, there's certain stigma or certain labels that get attached to certain generations, just because society sees it that way. But not all of it is true. I mean, I can't, I hope I'm not seen as bleak. And I don't want to label every millennial as entitled or every Gen Z as disloyal, but that is sort of the general stigma. But I think the aim of this conversation also is to try to break some of these mindsets and these filters, because we can all also perpetuate the stigma by talking about it or labeling people as such. So I think we've got to come to a place where we learn from different generations and innovate. So I was with a client, for example, I was with a client yesterday, and we were talking about the same thing. And their experience with hiring entry-level people, graduates, and the ability, or them having the ability to train, to motivate, to get them to work differently. Because again, the stigma is that Gen Z prefer hybrid, prefer working from home, prefer or value. They value flexibility. They value work-life balance. Whereas your baby boomers just got stuck in. So my parents, for example, would have got a job and stayed in that job for life. There wasn't a need for them to change at that point in time. There wasn't even that many opportunities. If you landed a job that paid well and maybe even paid a good pension, you stuck at it and you stayed in it. But it's a different time now, where job for life was the theme, let's say in 70s, 80s, 70s and 80s, or 60s, 70s and 80s. It's not the case now. We're finding more people changing jobs within 2 to 3 years. But we shouldn't necessarily call that disloyal. It's only because there's so many opportunities available now. So it's a good thing. But it's how do you work, even if you have somebody in that. So if you're an employer, even if you have somebody that's in that generation, Gen Z, how do you motivate them enough in the time that you know you'll have them for? And maybe even they'll stay longer, but just capitalizing on the fact that they come with innovative ideas. Caitlin, when you joined the company, how long is it now? Just over a year ago, I think.
Yeah.
You come with innovative ideas all the time, and actually, that's one of your traits. You're known for always having so many ideas, but we just can't implement everything, and it takes time for change. So employers have got to understand fresh ideas is important, but change doesn't. But Gen Z needs to understand that change doesn't happen overnight. I think each generation comes with its own pros and cons, and we're also living in an age where everything is instantaneous. The
Yeah.
instant gratification, right? We call for a ride, we request, we get a Uber, we get Uber Eats. Everything's to our door these days.
Mm.
Whereas baby boomers didn't have it that way. So bringing that sort of thinking and appreciation for where people were, how they grew up, and why they are the way they are, will make you appreciate and have a better understanding and a better working world.
Mm.
I guess it just makes your life easier. So going back to you, Caitlin, you mentioned obviously Gail is one of the oldest in our company, and we've got a spectrum of people, ages within the business. How have you found it joining a company that has this? What's been your background, and then what's it been like stepping into Pro Talent?
So you would think that because of the various age gaps that I'd find difficulty, working with everybody. But that wasn't the case for me because when I grew up with a lot of adults. It's kind of how um, that was my family background. We were mostly around adults. I was also the oldest grandchild, niece, whatever you want to call it. Niece, sorry. I was the oldest. So obviously that meant a lot of the younger ones came later, which meant all I had were the adults. So that was useful, not then, but now, because I've learned how to adapt to different age groups based on the fact that initially I grew up mainly around um, adults. That's kind of how I started off. And then, so here there is no, you really would think that there'd be difficulty, relating, but it's not, it hasn't been difficult. And I think the more you expose yourself to people of different generations, the easier it gets to be able to relate to them or be able to engage with them. So another example is church. So at church, I've been exposed to also different age groups through different things. And through that, I've been able to take that into the working space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's useful for sure because it's putting yourself in those situations, right? If you
Mm.
it's easy to say I'm going to apply for a job, get into the company, and then find your MD is, there's a huge generation gap, and then there's that tension that starts happening, and you're not motivated enough, or that hiring or your manager is not motivating you enough, or doesn't understand, or again buys into the stigma that um, a generation comes with its own traits, so that's them, and boxing them. I think we've got to find new ways to and break the mold as much as possible. So if
Yeah.
you're a grad, um, if you're a school leaver grad, or in that Gen Z sort of uh, age group, I think break the mold, do something different, or be something different. When you join a company, don't perpetuate, don't allow that what society might label you as entitled or um, disloyal. I think those are very negative attributes, and we shouldn't embrace that. We shouldn't continue that language either. But as best as possible, if somebody has that label or even has that mindset, it's going in there and showing them differently. So again, we don't see the difference. You and I almost do the same jobs. We do the same jobs actually in recruitment, but there's no difference in, well, there's no difference in what we do, but it's the how we do things. So you'd obviously have a different focus and different specialization, and so would I. And I'd be speaking to or engaging different clients, and so would you. But it's that synergy that we can find, that middle ground. It's like if you can bring your skill and I can bring my skill, and you can bring your experience, my experience, then working together isn't a problem. It's just finding that middle ground and understanding and appreciating that what's gone before would have laid a good foundation. So you coming in comes into a business. Pro Talent is 30 years old, by the way. Will be 31 in March. But you coming into a business that's 31 years old, literally, and then finding that, wait, there's some systems and processes that may be archaic, may be outdated, but then you're not coming in and you're not stepping in and saying, "Oh, this is too old of a system," and start complaining and then leave. I think observing you and how you've come in is that you've embraced what is, how the systems and processes are, but making minor tweaks along the way. Like one of the first things I remember you when you joined in was the registration form and moving us from a paper document to an online form. And you did that like within a day or two, where we've been for years just sending out, an application form and people had to print and fill out and complete, and now we completely digital. But that was your doing. So that's appreciated. And I think both employers and grads, Gen Z, if you fall into that generation, you've got to show, wait, this is why we've been doing it. And if we can change, let's change it. But embracing the ideas and the innovation that comes with it. So that's very useful. Yeah, so I think we're coming up to the end of our session. If anybody has questions and maybe some questions on the chat that maybe need to be addressed, feel free to put up or even unmute yourself and ask the question. Maybe we'll give it another 5 minutes for questions because we've gone into an hour and we've also had a slight delay at the start. So we appreciate everybody for even staying through. But if you have any questions, maybe put it on the chat or unmute yourself and just ask the question if you want to do that. There will be a draw as we close as well. So Caitlin will get that prepared for us in a second, where you'll stand a chance to win a book by Cindy Norcott. One of these. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a free consultation, one of the recruiters to help you with your CV and career preparation and interview preparation. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free. I see a hand go up, Ashley.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so firstly, thank you so much for the opportunity that you've given us in order to enlighten us on how to do. I've learned a lot, honestly. Like I always used my mother basically for her to apply for me, but now I feel as if I'm more than equipped to apply for myself.
Okay.
So, my question is, okay, so I'm a third year student, but I'm very passionate about working part-time. And since I'm going to be doing my third year this year, I asked my mother if I should apply for like internships whilst I'm still in third year. And then she kind of raised something that maybe not, maybe I should just wait until I finish and I graduate because it could affect maybe the salary that they're gonna offer me. So I'm asking now, my question is, does applying before you get your graduation certificate affect the amount that they're going to offer you on the table for your skills?
Sure, that's a good question. So based on the graduate roles that I've worked, I think my answer would be no. I don't think that it would affect it, because so there was a position that we were sourcing for. It's called a junior assistant brand manager. And the main thing that you needed was your matric and your qualification. A lot of the people that I had contacted were in their final year or within the last few months of completing their degree or the honors or whatever it was. And the offer is pretty standard. So we had a range of 12 to 14. That was the offer that the company had put forward. And it didn't change. They didn't change what I don't want to say their budget was. They didn't change that just because somebody had no experience or somebody had more experience. I don't feel like they've done that based on my experience, but maybe Adrian, because you have been working a lot longer, maybe you'd have a bit of a better insight into that.
Just gonna unmute. Yeah, I mean, it was a good question. Well, it was a long question. I can't remember. In short, Ashley, what is it you're looking for? Like specifically,
Okay, so my question was, okay, since I'm in third year this year, right?
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about applying for part-time jobs.
Yes.
But then my mother said maybe this year I could just chill up until I do get my graduation certificate, because maybe it could affect the salary that they're going to offer me, like in terms of my skills, just because I don't have the graduation certificate as yet.
Yes. Well, see, in my opinion, when you're studying, salary shouldn't be the goal right now. It's building your skill set, developing your skill set, building your CV, and creating a resume. It's the experience that counts right now. So where you're involved, what you do, how you did it, who you interacted with, the references that you gained from there, that's the important. That's gold. No amount of money is going to equate to all of what I just said, because that actually is going to translate into remuneration at some point. But the focus shouldn't be, this is going to affect what my salary is going to be once I get qualified. And also there's that, right? Because there's also the thinking that, once you graduate, you are entitled to a certain salary, and that's not the case. And you have to remember, employers and businesses, company owners don't know who you are. They haven't experienced you. You haven't got a reference to even say that you can do what you say you can do. So nobody's sort of giving you the verification as yet. So part-time jobs, by all means, volunteering, project work, everything and anything that can, as I said at the start, soft skills. You develop soft skills only by those avenues. The qualification will get you an interview, but will it get you the job? It's the experience, your interactions with people, the references that you would have gained, the skills that you developed. That's what will get you the job. Hope that helps. Anybody else before we move on to the... Thank you very much for the question, Ashley. Any other question before we move on to the lucky prize draw?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Joshua, and I'd just like to thank you for what you spoke about. It really did help me. But I do have one question concerning your CV. When writing your CV, should you focus on highlighting experiences that are directly relevant to the specific job you're applying for? Or would it be more valuable to include broader skills and experiences you've gained holistically across different roles?
Can I answer that? So yeah, so I would say across the board, depending on what stage of your career you're in. So if you're a graduate, you want to put in all your skills. You want to showcase as much as you can just to get an opportunity, right? It's later on down the line, once you're getting 3 years, 5 years experience in a specific field, that you won't need certain things. So if I started off so Ashley mentioned she wants to get a part-time job. Let's say it was sales, retail sales, but her vocation or her career is actually financial management or accounting. It might not be, so sales might not necessarily be relevant to her getting that job or applying for the job next year after she qualifies. But there's other transferable skills like what Caitlin was describing before in her presentation that would be needed. But how would we know you had the skills or worked in that environment to have got the transferable skills? So you have to put it on your CV if you're at that level right now. If Ashley, or once Ashley graduates and gets a job in finance, and sorry for using you as an example, Ashley, but once you get that opportunity, sales might not be so relevant, so you wouldn't even put it on your CV anymore. So in 5 years' time, you're not going to need that skill set because you would have gained 5 years in a specific field or sector that might be more relevant to your career. Does that make sense, Joshua?
Yes, it does. 100%. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Cool. I'm conscious of time, and I want to be, very mindful of people's situations. If you're working, if you're just taking a break just to join us, we appreciate you joining us. Yeah, we're very, very thankful that many of you joined in and was a part of it. We are contactable. ProTalent, obviously, I think our details should show up at some point, but I'll pass on to Caitlin to do the lucky draw prize. Lucky prize draw it is.
Can you see the wheel?
Yes, perfectly, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna turn it.
93. I think there's a lot more.
Samuel.
I hope we have Samuel in the chat. If Samuel is, then can you just give a quick shout out on the chat? And we're having 2 more, right?
Yeah. Samuel.
Let's do the other 2 and get this to the 3. And
Okay.
Serena, if you're on the chat, then please just make a comment so we can mark you down for that gift. And then next. Pamela. Cool. Well done to all the winners. If you have our email address or post your name on the chat, but feel free to get in touch, give us your details, and we'll send over those gifts to you. One of them is a consultation, a free consultation with one of the recruiters, myself or Caitlin or any one of the team, to help you with your CV and just some general career advice as well as interview prep. So that's an hour consultation with one of the consultants. So thank you very much for your time, everybody that's joined in. We appreciate you joining in and being a part of the webinar. If you do need to contact us, pro-talent.com. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, I think TikTok as well, I'm not sure. Facebook. I'm Gen X, so I wouldn't be using TikTok. Thank you, Tessa. Yeah, Caitlin, any final words?
No, that's everything. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. And like I said, there will be a recording, so we'll send that link out to you. Feel free to share that, and it'll also be on YouTube. But we thank you again, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much. Thank you.